Hi guys, welcome to this week's Reclassified here on Ickonic.com, and this week we'll be speaking about the land of Nod and the two cubes. I've just found out there's possibly two cubes going on here, which would make sense of the Freemasonic chessboard and a previous incarnation of that game, which we'll be talking about in this episode. It's a fascinating game of bait and switch and how this may go in their so-called end times. You know that I don't believe these are prophecies. These are being brought about by human beings who believe in this stuff and are doing it themselves. But they do have an agenda, and the whole point of this show is we're gradually, I think anyway, piecing together this agenda over time, and all these little things are coming together to show how this prophecy, which is just people doing it, is going to be played out and literally played out. So this one, we'll be talking about the land of Nod and Cain and how that maybe at the end times, so to speak, will be flipped, turned upside down like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which was clearly based on the same principles. If you go and watch it, he was causing carnage, old Will Smith. He was the Cain let loose in the land of Bel-Air, and you can see all these things playing out when you watch all these stuff back. It's actually the same archetypes over and over again. So let's have a look at the land of Nod and Cain and how this may all be flipped, turned upside down. So the first thing we need to do then is to have a look at what actually is the land of Nod. Now we all talk about nodding off during the day. I don't think any of us think that we're going to be nodding off to this kind of hell pit abyss down under, but that's where the term appears to have come from. So let's have a look at where Cain was banished to after he killed his brother Abel. Cain, after killing Abel, was then banished eastward of Eden, in the land of Nod. He wedded a woman of pre-Adamite stock and thus compounded his fault. So he wedded someone who was there before Eve and Adam, by the looks of it. So it could have been Lilith. I mean, all these things come about as well. And we looked into Lilith many times, haven't we, in conjunction of what this whole Tannin Iver concept is, of her riding the dragon, Tannin Iver, to meet up with Samael and that creating the beast. It all does connect together in their narrative, by the way. I'm not saying any of this is true, but they use these archetypes and these principles to get this in the mind of the populace and in to the circuits of the way you think and the way you operate, which is called cybernetics. It's the study of whole systems. So that Cain's wife was of forbidden or strange flesh is born out later in Jude 11. 11 is Crowley's number, remember. In referring to the men of Sodom and Gomorrah, woe unto them, for they have gone the way of Cain, that is, seeking after strange flesh. So this is basically a hybridization sort of program in the broadest sense there. The pre-Adamites were referred to by the Hebrew and Naklash to hiss as serpent. So they hissed. It just meant like serpent. So they're looking at basically having it off with a kind of reptilian serpent being. So all of it again comes back to what we've been talking about. Thus the mixing of races and the appearance of the devil in history are conjoined in the misdeeds of Cain, the hybridization program, in the land of Nod. Cain is also reputed to have celebrated the first black mass or satanic mass on earth. So you can see it all coming together now. Cain and Freemasonry. The name of Cain survives today in Freemasonry in two forms, which are integral to the most crucial tenets of this association. First of all, murder, the threat of murder, and the constant reenactment of murder are basic to the most important Masonic rituals, as Stephen Knight pointed out in his book, The Brotherhood, shortly before his untimely death. That looks like a fantastic book. I've not read that, so I'm going to have to get that one. Thus, a direct link to the first murderer, Cain, is established by these rituals. The importance of the Cain legend to Freemasonry is also revealed by the fact that Cain slew his brother. In Freemasonry, if you are asked to act against your own brother in behalf of fellow Masons, I don't know how that works, you must do so under pain of death. So you've got to try and kill a Freemason, which is your brother, if another brother tells you that brother is going outside their weird system. Then There have been many incidences where a man who was pursuing a lawsuit against a Mason was astounded to have his own brother, who would be a Mason, come into court and commit perjury against him to help his other brother Masons. So they're all having a go at each other. So when you look at how these elitists and these kind of cults, they're all having a go at each other and eating each other alive, because they're all like scammers and lunatics and, false idols, and they're all con men, really. So what does a con man do? If you put a bunch of con men together, they'll backstab each other. So it's kind of got an inbuilt virus in this system. But that's basically a little bit about Cain and the land of Nod. So he was sent to the land of Nod after he killed his brother. So the name, Nod. Nod is the Hebrew root of the verb to wander. Therefore, to dwell in the land of Nod can mean to live as a wanderer, which is kind of like a vagabond, really. So it might not be in a specific place. Some people think it's a specific place, but again, taking these things literally is what this cult appears to be doing. But it seems to be, it's just wander, outcast, cast out. Much as Cain's name is connected to the verb meaning to get in Genesis 4:1, the name Nod closely resembles the word nad, gonads, usually translated as vagabond in Genesis 4:12. A Greek version of Nod, written as naive, so N-A-I-N, but it's spelt it's pronounced N-A-I-V, naive, or naive, possibly, appearing in the Osmastica Vaticana, possibly derives from the plural nahim, which relates to resting and sleeping. This derivation, coincidentally or not, connects with the English pun of nodding off. It's clearly all connected. You're going into the land of Nod, you're going under. Under hypnosis would be the same thing. They're taking you into this abyss, which Carl Jung called your shadow work. It's the same thing that they're talking about, going into this abyss. So the land of Nod. The land of Nod is a place mentioned in the book of Genesis of the Hebrew Bible, located on the east of Eden. So really, we don't really know what that means in terms of the east of Eden, but we'll see where that possibly could be. Where Cain was exiled by God after Cain had murdered his brother Abel out of jealousy, basically. In Genesis 4:17, that relates after arriving in the land of Nod, Cain's wife had a son with him, Enoch, in whose name he built the first city. So this first great city is the city of Enoch. Now there's two Enochs, so people often get them confused. This was the first Enoch, I believe, which is the son of Cain, and he had other sons as well, and the lineage of all this. But Enoch was the first city he built. Cain was sent to the land of Nod after killing Abel. He was exiled, as Adam and Eve were later on, but he was sent to this underworld and this dark place, which, it could be seen as hell, I suppose. Of course it could. But that's where Cain is apparently residing, chained up for his misdeeds of killing his brother. He was the first ever murderer. So in this section, we're going to look at the transgressions of Cain. So this is from John 3:12. Not as Cain, who was of the evil one, and killed his brother. And wherefore did he kill him? Because his own works were wicked, and his brother just. So basically he was jealous of how God saw his offering. And Abel's offering was accepted and Cain's wasn't. The transgression of Cain, the first murderer, is of remarkable significance in tracing the development of occult organisations in history. The Hebrew word for Cain is Kajin, spelled K-A-J-I-N, to chant, from which we derive the slang terms for persons of mixed race, apparently. From Cain descended Tubal-Cain, or Tubal-Cain, whose name is used as the secret password of Freemasonry. Tubal-Cain, the secret of Freemasonry. Not so secret now, obviously. Tubal-Cain was the son of Lamech, but he was born of a bigamous marriage. Tubal-Cain became a blacksmith, and he later became renowned as the father of witchcraft and sorcery. His father, Lamech, was the son of Methuselah, of the line of Cain. So you can see these two different lines of lineage, really, obviously, parting ways there, but they are connected at the very top. So it seems to be like this Cain and Abel fight over the who came first and who has the rights to this land, and then you can see it all playing out with this Israel, who was Jacob, changed his name to Israel later on, and where they believe they have the divine right to rule, and all this madness that's going on in the Middle East. is because of this stuff. Unfortunately, people have taken this literally, and we'll see later in an interview that I did how it is possible that the biblical texts are actually just astrotheology, and it was a survival guide to the weather, basically the seasons, and how to do the best things in the seasons that came to create food, shelter, and everything later on. And that seems to make far more sense to me anyway. We might suppose that the two sons of Adam, Cain and Abel, having the whole world before them, would have little cause for discord, but Cain, being one of the evil ones, sought a quarrel with his brother. So they had everything they ever wanted, but they weren't happy. One of them wasn't happy anyway. The Bible recounts that they made offerings to God, and that God accepted the offerings from Abel. I suppose we get able-bodied from there as well, being able to do something. But rejected the offerings of Cain because he was unworthy. That is, he was of the serpent. So it's kind of signifying that Cain was possibly like not the seed of Eve. Cain was of this other reptilian type serpent seed, possibly Lilith. Something along those lines. He might have married Lilith, or he might have been from the Lilith line. It all gets a bit convoluted depending on what you believe, but it's fascinating. The themes are there, and the themes are what we should sort of kind of take in, as opposed to the actual specific dates and names and stuff, because it just gets really confusing. But if you look at the overall themes, you see this dot connected all the way through. Cain, overcame by wrath and jealousy, then slew Abel. The Midrash gives a somewhat more extended version that Cain persuaded Abel that they should divide the world between them. Cain would get all the land and Abel would have all the chattels thereon. Cain then informed Abel that he was standing on his land and that he should remove himself. Abel retorted that Cain was wearing clothes of animal skins, which belonged to Abel, they thought, and Cain slew Abel. So the next bit is the interpretation. So this is Nod as the black cube. Now what we're doing here is start to build this picture. So we know that Cain has been sent to Nod for being a naughty boy, for killing his brother, and this is the abyss, or this is hell. But this is also represented in the black cube of Saturn. So you have this black cube situation. So if we're tying it back to Freemasonry, this is where we're going to go with it. That's the black cube, and we'll look at the white cube later on. But this is the black cube essence of it. So Josephus wrote in Antiques of the Jews, AD 93, that Cain continued his wickedness in Nod, resorting to violence and robbery, establishing weights and measures, transforming human culture from innocence into craftiness and deceit, establishing property lines and building a fortified city. So this is the first city, the city of Enoch, that he basically put weights and measures in. And I've spoken to some authors about this stuff, especially with the cult of Saturn, and this is where it came. It was this system, the beast system, that was put in place, and it seems to have been, according to these guys, started by Cain. Nod is said to be outside of the presence of or face of God. Origen defined Nod as the land of trembling and wrote that it symbolized the conditions of all forsaken God, or who forsaken God. Early commentators treated it as the opposite of Eden. So here we have this opposite again. So we have this dark cube, black cube of Saturn, and this light cube, which we will speak about later on, which will be, obviously, anyone who's watched the previous stuff, will be the New Jerusalem or Zion. So early commentators treated it as the opposite of Eden. Worse still, the land of exile for the rest of humanity. In the English tradition, Nod was sometimes described as a desert inhabited only by ferocious beasts or monsters. Others interpreted Nod as dark or even underground, away from the face of God. And then we can look at the abyss. Last week when we were looking at the Jeffrey Epstein connection to Dulce Base and New Mexico, it's all underground. You know, all the stuff on the island is going on underwater, checking our protection. This underground stuff is massive. The Dulce Base stuff. Now, there's been a lot written about the Dulce Base and all its 7 levels of hell, possibly 9 levels. Some of it is a bit over the top, I think, but I think the main themes are right, and I think the base is there clearly, and it does go underground. Los Alamos, I think, is National Laboratory, is completely connected. Zorro Ranch, I believe, is connected to these things, and all over New Mexico and further afield to Area 51. I do think it's all connected underneath. Some of it is made, by man, and some of it is pre-existing tunnels that were around a long time ago and they've utilised. But it's a fascinating aspect, but there is something going on underground, and I believe that the land of Nod, Wonderland, all of these things point to the same place. It's a upside down, topsy-turvy chaos in the underworld. So this is the book this concept came from, and I just find this really interesting. It was Wayne McCroy again who put me onto this book. He does fantastic work at the Alchemical Tech Revolution, and this was just one part of what he was reading out, but this was the part that really struck me about the two cubes, and this is from Tracy Twyman's Clockshavens that we spoke about a couple of weeks back, I believe, but it all fits together, and it's a fantastic concept of trying to understand this stuff. Now remember, she was deeply involved with these people, even had her own little cult thing going on for a little while there. She died in very strange circumstances, coughing up black goo and all. It was horrific, but this writing is fascinating to me anyway. So this is connecting Cain to Saturn. His slumber has been artificially produced in order to chain him, and round about him were many demons for his guards and servants. For Saturn himself is imprisoned in a vast cavern, sleeping upon a rock overlaid with gold, which could be seen as the tabernacle. It's the gold overlaid. It could be the same thing. For his sleep has been contrived by Jupiter for his chaining. Jupiter is the one that took Cain down. Whilst birds fly down from the rock, which are ordained to carry ambrosia to him. Ambrosia, do you remember what that was when we looked into that? As Peter Thiel is connected to a company called Ambrosia, he was interested in funding them. People think that he actually was part of it, and he got blood from Ambrosia, which was basically young people's blood to try and regenerate your cells and live forever. There's a connotation here that could be true. Peter Thiel's massively involved with this, but there's no evidence that he was actually being part of this process, but he was definitely connected in terms of financing, and he sort of thought about giving some money. And when you think about where the money actually comes from Peter Thiel's work, which is the CIA, Palantir, In-Q-Tel, it doesn't really matter if he's just one of the dots in the line, because the money's not coming from him anyway. He's just one of these bagmen that passes it down to the likes of Musk. It's such a hierarchy. But Ambrosia is a massive thing here that we know about, and it has connotations to obviously Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, and the British royals who are King Charles related to Vlad the Impaler. Proud of it. Those genii wait upon him and nurse Saturn, who had been his companion at the time when truly he used to reign over both gods and men, and they, being endowed with prophecy, foretell on their own account many things, but important matters, and such as concerns the highest things. They go down in the cavern and report as the dreams of Saturn, for whatever things Jupiter is devising for the future, Saturn dreams what they are about, and that which is kingly and divine. So I think that kind of implies that mind control, a sort of osmosis from Nod, from Cain or Saturn, same thing, and put in the minds of men, and it's like the evil doings, basically. It's your shadow work. Carl Jung again. So Saturn appears to be at least connected to, I would say it's the same deity as Cain, Kronos, Santa Claus, Old Father Time. It's the same person, or it's the same entity here, and that's what we're seeing, is that he's gone off to the land of Nod because he's been a naughty boy, and he wants to break out with all the demons, and they're still there now. This again is not what I believe. This is what they believe in this cult, it seems, and the interpretations of the biblical text that they've come up with. So this is where it ties into the Kabbalah. Saturn's golden age was like the day of rest, of timelessness. On the seventh day of creation, 7 again, the day in which the events in the Garden of Eden story took place, a new golden age will happen at the end of time, with a new Genesis and a new Eden. This is where we're bringing in this new city of Jerusalem and Zion. And you can see the connections to what Trump is talking about this new golden age. And it's the golden age of Saturn, as you guys well know. It's the golden age of Saturn, so this is exactly what it is. And this is where he gets it from. We represent this grand cycle in microcosm at the end of each week with Saturday, which is your weekend. The Sabbath, and also at the end of every year with a celebration of the winter holidays, which we know Saturnalia is the Christmas holidays. It's a topsy-turvy time where all the rules are put out and everybody, it's kind of like celebration of Saturnalia was basically no rules mattered, and that ended on the 12th night, which was January the 6th, and that's where we spoke about a few weeks ago, which was Topsy-Turvy Day, which will link into this. It all connects together eventually. It's Feast of Fools, Topsy-Turvy Day, all the same thing. And there's an inversion of a Christian day as well, which is called the Epiphany, I believe. The ancient Romans observed these as non-days outside the realm of time, so outside Chronos. This was their feast time of Saturnalia, the precursor to our own Christmas, which we know. Saturn was obviously the inspiration for Santa Claus. After all, Saturn was an eternal old man who must have lived near the North Pole. Plutarch says the sun only sets there every 30 days, and we served by a set of demons, elves. So the elves are the demons. Saturn, like Kronos, was also the Roman lord of time, and carried a scythe or scythe like death. Therefore, he is clearly the inspiration of Father Time, used in modern iconography to represent the old year on New Year's Eve, always next to a baby, representing the new year. So we know this stuff. This stuff is connected to Saturn. Saturn, I believe, is the same as Cain. This is the black and white cube. So this again is from Tracy Twyman's book Clock Shavings, and this is where it kind of ties into this week's theme of how they're going to do this and flip this upside down at the very end. It's kind of like a bait and switch, which is what they all do, Hansel and Gretel style. As I said, I think the flood was not a physical deluge of water, but also a dissolving of reality into chaos. Surviving this requires an alchemical arc of safety, like the black cube or white cube. So here we go. So the white cube, that was the cube of safety. Now, there's some belief systems that believe that we live in this cube of safety now. Others believe this to be the Matrix and the black cube, which is more Gnostic kind of style of thinking. But there are Christian kind of belief systems that they believe that we are in the safety of the ark right now, and that these devils are trying to break into this. So it's a really interesting concept. This is what much of the arcane literature written by initiates of the occult seem to indicate, as well as the more esoteric scriptures of Judaism and Christianity, so the Kabbalah. In Les Serpents Rouges, a cryptic poem published by the Priory of Sion, the authors appear to be referring to a mystery and a treasure synonymous with those of the Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Noah, and the cube philosopher's stone of the alchemist. It seems to be possibly that all these things are the same. It discusses the strange manuscripts of an enigmatic friend. This friend's name remains a mystery, but his number is that of a famous seal. And I wonder what that seal is, not the guy that sung Kiss from a Rose. This seal is the hexagram. So here we go now. So this is the famous seal that seals these two things together now. But when you look at the seal and what it actually represents, you'll see that there is a crossover literally here of these two possible cubes, and I think that that's where we're going to see this transhumanist merging come from. This seal is the hexagram, the seal of Solomon, which is some people believe it's the seal or star of Remphan, and obviously the Star of David, which is on the flag of Israel, obviously. So it's a triangle, the Trinity up, and it's the Trinity down. So above as below. Here is the proof that I knew the secret of the Seal of Solomon, and that I had visited the hidden houses of this queen. As I discussed, this can be seen as representing the black and white stones merging at the apocalypse. So here we go. This is what I want to speak about today, the merging of these two. And then the collapsing, because we know these Kabbalists and these guys want to reset everything, which is basically just to collapse everything in on itself, bring the two polarities together, collapse it in, restart it, and then own what comes next, their new world or their new golden age. And this is the whole principles of the same thing. Collapse it back in. That's the singularity. It's the same thing as well. So I just want to read that bit again. So as I discussed, this can be seen as representing the black and white stones merging at the apocalypse. The friend is described in the poem as like the pilot of the imperishable ark, impassable like a column on a white rock, scanning towards the south, where the black rock is. At another point, the poem declares, in all capital letters, Deliver me from the mire, so that I will not stay here sinking. So there is a whole element in this Primary of Sion poem, Le Serpent Rouge, red, the red serpent, could be tannin either, that Cain and his demons want to escape from this land of Nod, and they're going to do this by possibly tricking us into believing that they're going to come up at the same time as this cube is going to come down, and they're going to switch it round on us. A bit of a wrestle in there. Have you ever noticed the wrestling ring when it's got the big wrestling events? It's the tabernacle. It's quite obvious what it is. There was even a wrestler called Cain at one point that came from the fiery pits. And his brother, Undertaker, was his brother, used to put his hands up to raise the light up, and Cain would do the opposite and push his hands down to turn the lights down. It was clearly a nod and a wink to this, these principles. The phrase "deliver me from the mire" is repeated again at the end of the poem when the narrator awakens from a dream that he had apparently been in during the entire adventure described in the poem. This should remind us of Cain laying in a coffin asleep in the land of Nod, or it will remind you of Saturn being chained to the rock. According to Plutarch, this is the same position that Saturn, the Roman equivalent of the Greek Kronos, is in, chained on an island vivet et non vivet by his son Zeus. His chains, says Plutarch, are formed by the illusions of his dreams, as he writes in Morals. So we're looking at the same principles and the same themes over and over again, aren't we? So Cain is sent to the land of Nod, and he's put in a box there, and he's kept in this kind of this dark place with all of his demons there and wants to escape. We have Saturn chained to a rock by his son, who his son defeated him after coming back because he was going to be eaten like the rest of them. And they want to bring back the new golden age, which is the reign of Saturn, which is the reign of Cain, obviously. So when you've got Donald Trump out there talking about Solomon's temple and pushing everything that Israel with their seal, with the mystery seal, the seal of Solomon, Remphan, Star of David, what they're talking about is merging these two or flipping it upside down, and that's what we'll get to later. And we know this from Yakin and Boaz. We've looked at this before. These are the temples, obviously the twin towers, the sun and the moon, either side of Solomon's temple as you go in, or every Freemasonic lodge you go in. But also they don't just have the sun and the moon on the side. They want to flip it upside down. They have the triangles. So triangle going up, triangle going down, and that just shows you exactly what it is. And the triangle going up, the triangle going down is another representation of the so above as below. And when you put them over the top of each other, you get, again, the 6-pointed stars, 666. And this is what we're looking at with the cube in the middle. So the cube in the middle is a white cube on this one, obviously the Star of Israel, but the seal of Israel. But it's all the same thing. So that could be the cube overlaid. It's a black cube and the white cube overlaid over the top of each other, which brings you to the Freemasonic checkerboard floor. Now, this is just a theory that Tracy Twyman had. I think it makes total sense. It's one of the options that we'll come to later, but they're clearly working towards something along these lines, this death cult. The story becomes more confusing when you consider that Freemasons frequently depict their sacred pillars to be surmounted by two globes. One is a regular terrestrial globe and one is a celestial globe. This symbol tends to indicate an esoteric belief that there is a need of two world mountains or axis poles, and this is where it gets really interesting, to hold up the sky. One to hold up the firmament of heaven, separating it from the earth, and the other to hold down and support the fundament of earth, to keep it from collapsing into the underworld. So it has these two poles. And we talk about the poles all the time, and the Nazis would talk about going to the South Pole and doing all sorts of weird stuff. It's probably just them talking about these things, the underworld. So you have these two poles holding up the world, and this is where Atlas comes in. And when you look at the Twin Towers going down in the IXXI Roman numerals for Saturn 911, that is the destruction of the two towers, or the two poles that hold the firmament up and keep the earth below from collapsing down. they were actually trying to collapse reality. Well, they weren't, obviously, but they were trying to. That was the symbology of it, or one of the symbols of it. The Gate of Apollo's the same. Somewhere over the rainbow's the same. It's the destruction of this reality. That's what it symbolised, and it's fascinating. Another common Masonic symbol worthy of note here is that of a broken column, which signifies death. It is usually shown with a lady called the Weeping Virgin, which would possibly be Mary, but could also be Lilith, standing over it, holding a sheath of wheat, wearing a toga. Father Time, who's Saturn, stands behind her lecherously, donned in only a loincloth, playing with her hair. Sometimes a symbol of the constellation Virgo is part of this scene as well. This emblem is often used on the gravestones and obituaries of Freemasons who have died, of whom it is said his column is broken. So if you ever see that, then there's probably a Freemason grave site. So it's we've got a picture of it, but it's a picture of Kronos, Saturn playing with the Virgin Mary or Isis, Lilith, Semiramis. I think they're all the same to me. At a broken column, and this could it's clearly it's clearly Saturn, isn't it? Death, and that could be on some Freemasons gravestones if you ever see it. I've never seen it actually. So now we come to this bait and switch thing that I really believe is going to be one of their aims. Now, I'm not saying any of these things are going to happen. Again, like I've said in the previous shows, they're going to hurt a lot of people trying to do this madness. I don't believe any of this is a prophecy or real or anything other than human beings doing weird shit. But they've got a lot of money. And you've got people like Donald Trump who totally believes in this stuff, and Elon Musk, who's the transhumanist end of this stuff, merging the two cubes together in the transhuman, that totally believe this stuff. So it's a cult. This is exactly what it is. No different from Charles Manson's cult, who was deeply involved with the Rosemary's Baby stuff by the looks of it, trying to create this Antichrist figure, or trying to stop it, or whatever he thought he was doing. But it's all there from the OTO onwards. If you recall, Alice was only to enter Wonderland, so this is about the switch from Wonderland. Now, this all connects in, and you know with the cube flooring, the Freemasonic flooring in Wonderland, that this is all about the same thing. If you recall, Alice was only able to enter Wonderland by shrinking herself that she was small enough to fit through the door at the bottom of the rabbit hole. She got into the state by eating and drinking certain things. So she was drugged, basically. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland appears to be one of the preeminent works of fiction published in the last 2 centuries that truly fits the ancient pattern of a portal to the underworld. Now, what do you think they're doing at CERN? What do you think the Habag guys openly say that Solomon's Temple will be? They say it's a gateway between heaven and earth. Well, if there's a gateway between heaven and earth, are they going to let hell walk right through as well? Because it seems to be that way. In that story, the White Rabbit who lured her down there complains that he is late for an important date. This may be an allusion to the late hour, the final hour, before year zero begins. This year zero again, this great reset. Late for an important date. There's a on St. Bart's where P. Diddy spent a lot of time, Dave Geffen spent a lot of time, Dr. Phil spent a lot of time. It's not that far from Epstein Island, really, isn't. There's a submarine port that will go both ways. There's even a yellow submarine that goes to St. Bart's. These guys, there was a Rockefeller mansion there, and there's a couple that went and explored it and found a white rabbit, stuffed white rabbit there, so make of that what you will. But believe it or not, one of the particle detectors in the Large Hadron Collider is named Atlas. Other interesting names for CERN experiments include Aegis, Alpha, Aleph, Delphi, Compass, Totem, Athena, Awake, and perhaps most menacingly, a trap. I mentioned the last one, which can clearly be decoded to a trap, because I think this may be what the opening of any such dimensional portal could lead to, and I think that's exactly what they were doing with the Manhattan Project at Tremontina, and the footage of which is processed at Lookout Mountain. And only last week, one of the Rothschilds, his house was burnt down with him in it by the looks of it, and that was on Lookout Avenue, so you could see this base from there. I don't think any of this is by chance. I suggest that those who are imprisoned in the regions below are constantly working to inspire their chosen geniuses, few among us, scientists, artists, writers, and philosophers, to penetrate God's secret of creation in particular. So they're basically sending osmosis, brainwashing ideas to these scientists that were around Epstein, the Silicon Valley morons, black nobility guys. Could these ideas and concepts be coming from the land of Nod? Tracy Twyman certainly thinks so. They want somebody to learn how to build one of these alchemical arcs and to open a gateway to where they are. They are hoping that someone will come and rescue them. But as I have said, ultimately, I think they will play humans a scurvy trick and try to take over the ark for themselves, leaving us to suffer in their stead. And that's exactly what I think that... Well, that's an option, which I do believe that it was worth contemplating. If they're going to make this white cube or bring it down, or they're going to, I don't know, hologram it, the black cube will rise up and they'll switch. That's what Tracy's kind of implying there at the end, or they'll take over the white cube. Because we know that only the 12 tribes of Israel are going to be allowed in there. That's exactly what they're talking about. If your name's not on the list, you ain't coming in, and all of that nonsense. And we can see that this is exactly what they're building. It's the AI white cube of the New Jerusalem or Zion versus the black cube of Saturn or Nod. These are the Freemasonic chessboard. Now, what I will say is that the New Jerusalem appears to be gold, not white. But it does turn a different whitey colour as it comes down. So, make of that what you will. But I still believe this has a lot of validity to it. CERN, now this was really interesting. At CERN, there's a large Hadron Collider experiment called ALICE. Of course there is. ALICE is one of 9 detector experiments at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. 9, again. Was there 9 levels of Dulce base instead of the 7? The experiment is designed to study the conditions that are thought to have existed immediately after the Big Bang by measuring the properties of quark-gluon plasma. And Davis talked a lot about plasma in his new book, about that. That's the way they're going to basically turn humans into transhumans. And I believe the plasma is this Tananiva. This is this way that they think that they're going to introduce this demon through the human being being the connection between that world and this world. We've got one foot in that world, one foot in this world. We're physical beings, but we're also spiritual beings too. So I think they're going to try and hijack that, possibly through this nanotechnology or the plasma, which they term Tananiva, which is the dragon-like steed that took Lilith to Samael to create the beast, the combination of the two. Now, I got this from this principle, anyway, from CJB Books, Christopher John Biotis. His stuff is fantastic. Go and check him out. And what he said on this concept fits in exactly with what I'm talking about with this flip, turn, upside down principle that Tracy Twyman was talking about, and that others as well. Wayne McCroy highlighted this. He believes that they're going to take what you can see now, which is the roots there. They look like feathers, but I think they're supposed to be roots of the Kabbalah tree of life. And then once they reach to the right point, they've got to flip it upside down. So the roots are at the top and Nod is at the top. And this New Jerusalem, Zion, is at the bottom. They're going to flip it over or attempt to flip it over. They see it as a moment when they can... Basically, the doors open and they can get out. The same principle with Christmas or the Feast of Fools. It's a moment when they're allowed out to play and they want to try and escape as much as they can. It is a concept in Kabbalah which represents the order in which the 10 Sephirot were created. The path emanates from the Ein Sof, the boundless source of divinity, and begins at Keter, the crown, and ends at Malkuth, the kingdom, which other people say is earth, where the physical world manifests and symbolizes the Logos which unifies them. So that's just basically the tree of life. It goes from the Ein Sof at the top, which is the crown, crown. We know that the world is run by the black nobility, the crown corporations, and at the bottom is the Malkuth. It's the kingdom. It's the earth. So they all these principles fit together, but the basic principle is that so above as below, and they want to turn it on its head. The mosaic pavement is the term Masons use to refer to the checkerboard pattern on the floor of their lodges. Because of this statement, we know that the authors of this poem are familiar with the church at Rennes-le-Château, which obviously most of you guys know. We visited there and done some filming there. We weren't allowed in. We're not one of the 12 tribes, but we filmed near there, and that's the whole Sangreal, Holy Blood, Holy Grail thing, which features statues of Jesus and Asmodeus at the entrance, with a chessboard marked out on the floor between them. They are saying that the black and white squares of chess are ultimately a puzzle to be put together. Doing this will recreate the white stone, the New Jerusalem represented in the church by Jesus, and the black stone, the infernal cubic city represented by Asmodeus, which again is Cain. So you've got the black and white cubes, you've got the dark and light, but together they can either flip it upside down. They're controlling, like we know, they control both aspects of everything. They always do, both polarities, as we've said before, with the red shift, blue shift, red being the colour of light when it goes away from you, blue when it gets near to you. It's magnetism and it's electricity. It's the same principles, and they've put these stories on top of them. So here they're saying they can combine the both and it will neutralise it, basically. That's what they're trying to do. Reset, neutralise. Perhaps it is a process of putting both stones together into one structure, which again is what we're saying then. So maybe the whole Freemasonic floorboard is about that, in some aspect, is about the combination of the two there. So this is a graphic that I've come up with. So this is just trying to explain it, because it's kind of like waffly to get your head around. So there's obviously a Freemasonic checkerboard in the middle there. So as below, on the left-hand path, black cube, the land of Nod, Saturn, underworld of Cain, and the city of Enoch appear to be all very much the same thing, at least in principle or some belief systems. So that's your hell, I suppose. So above, your heaven, obviously. Gold and the white cube as it comes down and transcends from the top. The New Jerusalem, and that's the city of Zion, and this is Donald Trump's and the cult's golden age of Saturn. This is what they're trying to do. They're bringing one cube up and one cube down at the same time. And it could be for a last minute switch over, a bait and switch. So let's have a look at this one. So on the left here, so I've switched them around obviously. So on the left here you have so below, which would be in the turning around and the twisting of this and the flipping of this, would see New Jerusalem go below, and as above you would see the black cube of Saturn coming up, the bait and switch. They would switch it over, and obviously in the middle there is the Kabbalah tree of life upside down. Upside down, you're turning me inside out. It's the same thing. It's topsy-turvy day. This is the same thing. They want to just turn things on their head. That's the whole point. So when you look at all these principles, it's a very simple principle of what they're doing. Remember, it's not what I believe. This is what I think they believe. And they think that at the very end, when this white cube comes down, that they believe anyway, it's going to come down the New Jerusalem, their black cube will rise up, and it'll give them an opportunity for Cain and his devils and demons to escape and trick humanity into going down into the black cube. Well, go down with the white cube to the area which is the land of Nod, and basically swap places with us. That could be seen in many ways. It could be seen in possession with the nanotechnology, the tannin Iva, the connection of basically taking over humans, taking over AI and living through AI, or human 2.0. It's a swapping, regardless of which way you see it. That the main archetype of this is a switching over. It's a bait and switch, and it's a swapping of the dark to light, light to dark, and to the good to evil, and evil. We know this. The inversion principle of Satanism is exactly the same. Satanic. It's a satanic inversion right at the very end there, and it's a really interesting concept. Remember, this is not what I believe. This is what I believe they believe, at least some of them. So this is the other option, is the fusion of the two. Now we know that transhumanists just all about fusing humans with technology. Elon Musk is the poster boy for this madness. So this isn't so much the switching of the two. This is the fusion of the two. So on the left you have Infinity, and above Yakin with the little triangle there that goes up, and the world on top. And on the right you have Beyond, so Infinity and Beyond, Buzz Lightyear, the same thing. That's what he was talking about. It was encoded in there, and Buzz Aldrin was obviously Buzz Lightyear, and Infinity and Beyond was a code word for this, I believe. So the singularity reset, fusion, collapse of worlds. So the beyond would be the below. But what will happen in confusion of the two would be they would overlap over each other. They would literally be placed upon each other opaquely, and everything would be chaos in terms of good and evil would be indistinguishable. And that's, I believe, is the point in the Star of David, is that you've got so above as below put over the top of each other, and in the middle there you have the cube where people are existing in confusion. Agio, written there, was the name of the chess game before it became chess, and this is an ancient game where it said that even though they played the game, they always knew the light side would win. The light side would win all the time. The white side would always win. But they thought, and they think in this principle, that actually at the very end, the whole point in the game is just to be on the winning side at the very end. And it all contributes to the win. Everybody wins, apparently, according to this cult, even through the evil that they do. They just need to make sure at the very end they're in the right cube, which will be the light cube. It's very odd, it's very confusing, but I believe this is the other version of it, is that they'll fuse the two together, and they'll try and use it as a moment where basically it's both worlds, the veil will be lifted. It's a really interesting concept. There's three outcomes there. There's the white cube coming down of New Jerusalem, Zion, and all the 12 tribes living in there, and everybody else being gone rid of. There's the black cube coming up and taking over and switching, which is Nod, hell, switching over, hell on earth. And then there's this other one there with the two combined there, creating the Seal of Solomon, Star of David, Star of Remphan, and the two things combine, and it's just like a great reset world where everything is just confusion, and they can reign over that confusion. It's a really interesting concept, but these are the concepts that they talk about in these things, and it's written through everything that they do. So the last thing we'll look at is something that I've repeated quite a few times. It's the Alice in Wonderland quote here. And Alice in Wonderland, again, we mentioned the White Rabbit earlier on. We know that this has a Freemasonic occult connotations to this. So this is the quote: "If I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. Nothing would be what it is, because everything would be what it isn't. And contrary-wise, what is, it wouldn't be. And what it wouldn't be, it would, you see." This is the end state of confusion, which I'm talking about when they combine. And if you look at the Star of David, it looks to me that they want the so above and as below to be overlaid over each other, and the veil to be lifted, and these two worlds to be connected, which would allow these demons out, the Cains of the world, the Saturns of the world that are chained to a rock, Cain asleep in the box there, the abyss, Apollyon coming out of the abyss, which Donald Trump's been clearly, there was a whole parade where they dressed up as Donald Trump as Apollyon, or Apollo. The gate of Apollo again is 9/11. It's connected that way with the two towers, three towers as well. Tower 7, the Salomon brothers, that went down. So it's all connected there for us to see once we can decipher this. And I'm not saying this is the absolute answer, but I think we're gradually getting somewhere with all these principles. Look at what we looked at last week, underground, with the Crowley Babylon working ritual from Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, and how the Scientology building's not too far away from Zorro Ranch and Dulce Base and Los Alamos, and they're clearly doing something underground there in the land of Nod. To me, it all connects together. They have a language that they speak. And I think I mentioned a few weeks ago in the Tower of Babel fable that the language was confused, so they couldn't build the tower up to become gods. I think that the language was confused for us, for humanity, but I think this secret society kept a language between themselves. And I think that what we're doing here, I believe, is decoding this language, because they have to stick to this language. Remember, they have a code that's set in stone that they can't veer from, and it's all to do with times, dates, the calendar, astrotheology. They do believe this stuff, and that's the way they communicate. So if they stop communicating like that, they won't be able to communicate and build their new Tower of Babel, which will be their New Jerusalem and Zion, and possibly one that's included with the land of Nod. So deciphering this stuff, I think, is really important. We can learn to kind of protect ourselves. And a classic example was, if you'd have known that January 6th wasn't just the epiphany of Christianity, January 6th was also Topsy-Turvy Day. You know, the Feast of Fools. Would have they gone to follow Donald Trump to their own demise at Capitoline Hill? I don't think they would. So it's worth knowing these things. Anyway, guys, I hope that made some sense. It's basically an upside-down, topsy-turvy world. That's what they want to bring about. Now I have Mika Dank on the show. He hasn't been on for quite some time, and we're going to talk about astrotheology and the texts and what he believes they really mean. It's absolutely fascinating, and you can see some of these themes that pop up. We're learning as we go along. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please, thank you for all the comments below, and I will see you in a week's time. Remember to do your own research. Come to your own conclusions, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye. Hi guys, welcome to this week's Classified here on Ickonic.com. This week I'm here with the returning Mika Dank. Mika is an author who's written 10 books, and they just cover everything you could possibly imagine about the esoteric and the occult, from gematria to etymology, numerology, astrology, astronomy, and mystery schools. It's an incredible amount of information this man knows, and I don't know how he gets it all in his head, but it's absolutely fascinating. Now, well, the first one, I think we looked into the history of religions, and now we're going to look at the last 6,000 years, which I think is really, really interesting to me, because this cult that I've been following, you guys know I've been talking about this messianic cult, seemed to kind of put this around this 6,000th year, the Sabbath, and into the 7,000 year, which is their day of rest. And we're coming up to these times where you see the messianic leanings of Donald Trump and the likes of the people around it, bringing in transhumanism. So this is really important to understand what these things actually meant, and then how they've been twisted and manipulated to bring in, especially those of the Christian faith, into this, as Elon Musk and those guys, Peter Thiel, are weaponizing this faith against its followers. So it's really important. Mika, thank you for your time. I'm going to just basically sit back, guys. We're going to cut this into two, because it's a long presentation, a 90-minute presentation. So we'll do 45 minutes now, 45 minutes next week, because it's a lot of information. But I'm not going to butt in too much. The expert is Mika, and I want you guys to get the grasp of what he's saying. So Mika, over to you, mate.
Thank you, brother. So the important thing, we did the astrotheology and the breakdown of the Bible when we were on a while back. Since then, if it was just the Bible, then I guess it could be argued. But the code that I have found can be applied from everything to the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, to the Bible, which we've done, the Gnostic texts, the Quran, the Book of, it's everything. This is the background of it. And if we understood that the Bible is not original and that the Bible is not fact, this would help prove it, to show that they've all been written the same way. So what I have done is I've basically taken one example of astrotheology, which we're going to go through all these texts. And I'm going to show you the pattern in all of them over 6,000 years. So I just need to share the screen so that people can see the work, and let me know when we're started. I only see you, so I can't see.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, on my screen I can see your screen, so
You
you can go
can?
for it. Yes,
Okay,
I
I
can. Yeah.
can't see that. So, okay, so I'm gonna start now, guys. Before I even start, I'm going to explain to you what this all means. And the reason I'm going to preface it with why it all means what it means is because it's important to understand this and give it context before I just show you the patterns. If I just showed you the patterns, you'd be like, okay, I see the patterns, I get the patterns, but what does it mean? So let's get that out of the way. So, what is the point of this? We take for granted that we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretations for the harvest season. They had to know things. They needed to know that Taurus was when you put the plow on the bull and plant, as above, so below. The Bible and these texts are encoded farmers' almanacs and were the knowledge of staying alive the most important thing. They would look at the stars and they would see the movements and they'd make up these stories about them and then they'd pass them down to their children and then down to their children and then down to their children. Eventually they learned how to write and they wrote them down and they evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism in the Old Testament, then to Christians in the New Testament, then to the Muslims in the Quran, and it's everywhere. So I like to share this quote, guys, because it's important to understand this before you take these holy texts literally. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. And that's basically the truth. So, in order for you guys to understand, I have to teach you guys the 12 signs of the zodiac because that's the primer. That's the key that unlocks this. I'm going to teach them to you, and I'm going to give you keywords that attach to these signs, and you'll agree with me with the keywords because I'm not making a leap of faith here. So let's just start here. So the first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which is the man. Virgo is the woman, Aquarius is the man. Now, technically, Aries begins the beginning of the year, but I start with Aquarius because that's kind of the beginning of our year and because it makes this easier to understand. The story of Aquarius goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy. And the story of Zeus and the young boy is that Zeus saw a 14-year-old blonde boy on Earth who he wanted in heaven. And it's pretty specific about that. Or on Mount Olympus. With all the gods. And the boy's father wouldn't let him go. So Zeus ends up bargaining with the boy's father. He gives him land, money, animals, things of that nature. Finally, the boy's dad's like, all right, you can take him up. So he takes the boy to Mount Olympus, which incidentally, Rich, it's funny because Mount Olympus is actually a legitimate, real place on Earth. But none of the Greeks ever went up there to see if any of the gods were up there. It's funny. So anyway, he takes the boy up to Mount Olympus, and the boy is feeding everybody, just like in this picture on the right, a drink called ambrosia. That's what the gods used to drink. And he's feeding them day after day in this water pitcher, and then eventually he just gets sick of doing that. So what he does is he goes to the side of heaven or the side of Mount Olympus, and he pours it out, and it causes a flood on Earth, and that's where the Greeks get their flood story from. Now, Zeus sees this and he's going to punish the boy, but in a moment of self-reflection, because, Zeus is a deviant, angry, unpredictable god. But in a moment of self-reflection, instead of punishing him, he goes, I shouldn't have brought him up here. He was a little young and this, that, and the other thing. So Zeus, instead of punishing him, immortalizes him as the constellation Aquarius. And the constellation Aquarius is this sign on the right, the man with the water pitcher pouring it out. So there's keywords, son of man and man, because again, Aquarius is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. You just put a child or a confused adult under there and you have it. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Fountain, because a lot of the Greek statues were built like this, the fountains. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea, water examples. Now, Aquarius is an air sign in astrology. However, because there is water in the picture of Aquarius, when they were encoding everything, they used it to mean water. Now, whereas Pisces, the next sign, is a water sign. It's a mutable water sign, the two fish in the water. So all the water examples still stay. Stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean, for example. Pisces is the two fish. This is why Jesus feeds the masses with two fish. We're not going to go into the actual Bible, but we're going to circumvent around the Gnostic texts and all of that. So like I just mentioned, the first two signs are water. Now, how you know whether it's Aquarius water or Pisces water depends on the kind of verbiage that they use. For example, he was baptized, or he drank out of the water pitcher. That would be Aquarius. Whereas Pisces would be like he swam in the river with the fish. So there's ways that you can tell. And the way that you could tell which water is which has to do with the way that the patterns that it makes in the heavens, which we'll see, and it'll make sense. Now, Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's the 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. There's also 3 different Passovers that occur during Aries. The first is the astrological and the oldest Passover, which is when the sun on March 21st, what it's going to do is pass over the equator and start to make its way back to its height in the summer solstice. In Judaism, the Passover is changed, and the angel of death passes over all the homes that have the lamb's blood. And again, the lamb is a baby ram. What it is the lamb's blood on the doorpost delineates if you're the people of Aries, the Jews. And the Jews are the people of Aries, the ram. That's why they blow the ram's horn during the holiday. And the third Passover is Christianity, and that's the resurrection of God's Son, where the Son's going to come back to life. So the key words would be ram, lamb, shepherd, ram's horn. Now, Taurus is the bull, and it's just as above, so below, Rich. You see the bull in the sky, you put the plow on the bull on earth so that you could plant. We have like John Deere equipment and all sorts of machinery that does it for us now, but this is how they did it in the ancient times. This is how they used the sky clock to figure things out so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you're talking about bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, that's Gemini. Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So if I were to take just something, I don't know, like, let's use this flash drive, right? And representing the sun. What the sun is going to do is on December 25th, it's going to rise a degree on its axis. And then on the 26th, it's going to rise an additional degree. 27th, an additional degree. Every day, an additional degree. And it's going to do this until it hits the summer solstice, which is Cancer. That is June 21st. Then at its height, it can't rise anymore. But on the June 21st, it's not going to rise anymore or drop anymore. What it's going to do is, like the crab that walks sideways, the sun is going to walk sideways and walk sideways for 3 days, where then on June 25th, it's going to drop a degree. And then the next day, another degree. And then the next day, another degree. So now we're seeing the patterns. When it hits December 21st, that's the winter solstice. It's going to walk sideways for 3 days. But it's important because the winter solstice, the sun is at its lowest point. It's the shortest day of the year, the longest day. It's the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year. And the ancients used to look out into the sky on December 21st, and the sun wouldn't crack the horizon. So they would say God's son was dead. And then just like the crab in Cancer, it's going to walk sideways for 3 days, not rise a degree or lower a degree. So now God's son was dead for 3 days. Where on December 25th, it's going to come back to life again and do that pattern. So back in the ancient Egyptian times, the crab was known as the scarab, the beetle. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, that's Cancer. Now Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you're talking about lion, lioness, or cub, that's Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. Remember before when we said that you plant in Taurus with the bull, as above, so below? See the bull plant? Well, you plant in Taurus, and then when you get to Virgo, the virgins would go out and cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat for the bread, grain, seed, barley, corn. Grainy things were always harvested in Virgo during the harvest season, during the ancient times. And in the northern hemisphere, where all these ancient holy texts were written, in the northern hemisphere, Virgo is when you would harvest all this stuff. Now, Libra is the justice, the scales, the balance, the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox, technically passes under. And makes its descent into winter, into cold, into death. Now, the Jews always celebrate the new year around the fall equinox. I'll give you an example. Last year, Rich, the Jewish New Year was September 15th. That's in Virgo. 8 days after the Jewish New Year, every year, there's a day called Yom Kippur, which is the day of judgment, the day of atonement. Well, you count 8 days from September 15th, that's September 23rd, that's the first day of Libra. The scale's the judge. Of course, the day of judgment has to be in Libra, the day of the judge. So, all law related things like law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, um, not so much the last three, but it is there. And it's also wine season, Libra. You got to ask any Italian. That's when you go to get your wine. That's when you crush the grapes. Libra is also olive oil season. You crush the olives to make the oil. So all law related things, all wine related things, and all olive related things are Libra. Now, Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, or technically attacks you, stings you, or whatever, it's going to leave an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips, just like a pair of lips. And it's why the mafia has the kiss of death. And it's the betrayer because the kiss, right, is something good, but there's poison in it. That's the betrayal. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra and it's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. This is where the sun dies. So the day of death, death is always in Sagittarius, December 21st, because remember, the sun's at its lowest point. It's dead. We went over this just before. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. And now you have the zodiac right here for Capricorn, the last sign. Now, if you look at the zodiac wheel, Capricorn's at the bottom. And what you do is you put a little sun at the bottom or a little flash drive like I just did, and you start marching it to the left, and it's rising a degree on its axis every single day till it gets to its height in Cancer. It starts the climb up the Great Mountain, as the zodiac is known. And why is it a goat? Because the goat climbs the mountain better than any animal out there. Those are the 12 signs. Those are the key words. I'm not expecting you all who are listening to remember everything I just said. I just need you to be at the point where if I say something and relate it to that, you can go, I remember him saying that at the beginning. So, Rich, before I jump into 6,000 years, do you have any questions?
No, it's absolutely fascinating. It makes total sense to me exactly what they're doing. And obviously, there's another level of this as an alchemical level in terms of the Philosopher's Stone and the gold and the lead of Saturn. And there's all these different things that represent and intertwine and intervene. And
Right.
this is what you're telling people right now is what it actually initially means. This cult have hijacked this information, used it for their own good, and inverted a lot. One of the things you pointed out, and I won't go on about this, I just want to mention it before I forget it, is you pointed out that hell's actually a frozen place. It's a
Yeah.
instead of the fire. So they've inverted that. Hell would be the
Right.
winter because everything's dying off and it's freezing cold. And I just found
Right.
that
They tell
fascinating.
you that.
That makes
They tell you
total
that.
sense. Yeah.
They say there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Well, when do you gnash your teeth? When do you
Yep.
chatter your teeth? In the cold or the hot? This is in the Bible. That's what they tell you. And the word inferno in Italian, you flip a letter, inverno means winter. And Dante Alighieri knew this in his Divine Comedy. Because if you look at the bottom layer of hell, Satan's frozen up to his waist.
Mm.
They knew this.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of trouble for sharing this, too, by the
And
way.
they're telling you in films like Frozen, where the golden, all of these kids film, they've encoded this stuff into films. But I just wanted to put that in to show how they invert those principles that you're talking about. But this is what they
Mhm.
initially meant. But yeah, go on. This is fascinating. Thank you, Mika.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the beginning. Let's start at the Sumerians. And I have 8 or 9 tablet examples here. So let's see how this works. Let's start with the Epic of Gilgamesh. May the bear mourn you, the hyena, the panther, the leopard, deer, jackal, lion, wild bull, gazelle. May the rivers Ulaya and Euphrates mourn you, whose sacred waters we offered to the gods. May the young men of the great walled Uruk mourn you, who cheered when we slaughtered the bull of heaven. Who's the bull of heaven? Taurus, right? May the farmer mourn you who praised you to the skies in his harvest song. May the shepherd mourn you who brought you milk. May the brewer mourn you who made you fine beer. May Ishtar's priestess mourn you, who massaged you with sweet smelling oil. May the wedding guests mourn you like their brother. The bear is Ursa Major. We know this. That's in Cancer. The Great Bear, which is Gemini in Cancer. The leopard is a constellation called Camelopardalis. Now, Camelopardalis refers to a camel, camelos, or pardalis, leopard, the camel leopard, which was the original name for the giraffe because they looked at this weird-shaped, long body with spots on it, and they said that's a camel leopard because they didn't know what else to call it, so that's what it was. The camel leopard is in Gemini. Mariga, or the deer, is located in Orion, which is between Taurus and Gemini. The lion is Leo. The wild bull is Taurus. The rivers are Pisces, the water sign that signifies water. The bull of heaven is openly Taurus. The shepherd is Aries, as previously mentioned. The milk comes from the Milky Way galaxy, whose center is in Sagittarius. The brewer and the fine beer is from barley, which is harvested in Virgo. Ishtar's priestess is Virgo, the woman. The sweet-smelling oil is the oil that I was talking to you about in Libra. The mourning like their own brothers is Gemini, the brothers. So we have every single astrological sign out of the 12 that I've given you, except for the two, Capricorn and Scorpio. They didn't mention Scorpion, and they didn't mention the goat. But this is the first text that I found with astrotheology in the Sumerian tablets, and just this one passage has 10 of the 12 signs. It's amazing. Now this is astrotheology in Enki and the world order. This is another Sumerian tablet. Father Enki, engendered by a bull, begotten by a wild bull. Great dragon who stands in Eridug, a grove of vines extended over the land. Where stags are born, where wild goats are born, in meadows. You close up the days and make the months enter their houses. The bull is Taurus. The dragon is Draco, which its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius. The stag, that's a deer, which is Mariga, which is in Orion, which is between Taurus and Gemini. And the goats are Capricorn. So we have Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Sagittarius mentioned here. The months entering their houses speaks of the months being locked into their zodiac houses. Each zodiac sign is called a house, or an eon, or an era, or an age. There's many different words for it. But in this particular tablet, 7 signs, and not only are there 7 signs, but they are 7 signs in a row. So can you see my tapestry in the back?
Yeah, it'll be small on the screen. If you send me a screenshot or a picture, I'll put it back over the top. But yeah, I can see
Well,
it. Yeah.
I just want to show you guys something real quick. If I'm talking about this sign right here, the connecting signs would be the 2 next to it.
Right. Okay.
That's a pattern. The other pattern is this sign come all the way across to its opposing sign. So the patterns are opposing signs or connecting signs. Those are really the only patterns that you can make in the zodiac. But this one has 7 signs right here to open the tablet. Now this is Enki and Nirhusaja. In Dilmun, the raven was not yet cawing, the partridge not cackling, the lion did not slay, the wolf was not carrying off lambs, the dog had not been taught to make kids curl up, the pig had not learned the grain was to be eaten. The raven is the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. The lion is Leo. These two are connecting signs, like I just showed you. The wolf is the constellation Lupus, which borders Libra. Now it's 3 signs in a row. The lamb is Aries, which is the wolf's opposing sign. So there's another pattern. The dog is Canis Major, which is 11 stars in Cancer. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and Libra. Now we have 4 signs in a row. The pig is a constellation called Porcus, which was discovered in the 5th century BC. Now this one is called Dumuzid's Dream. And on my presentations, which I sell to people too, I also have the if these tablets are numbered, kind of like how the Bible has chapter, verse, and everything. I put it in there. If it's just one long tablet and they didn't break it down, then I just put the words in. But here it says, "Crabs of the river grieve. In ancient times, the shepherd lay down. Twin reeds. Water was poured. My holy drinking cup was torn down. An owl took a lamb from the sheep house. My rams were scratching the earth. No milk was poured. That your male goats were dragging their dark beards. The evil, hated by men, a river barge. May your dog devour me, the black dog, your shepherd dog, the noble dog, your lordly dog. Who eat no fish? They offered her a field of grain. Please change my hands into gazelle instead of snake. The crab is Cancer. The river is Pisces. The shepherd is Aries. Pisces and Aries are connecting signs. Twin is Gemini. Gemini and Cancer are connecting signs. The milk is the Milky Way galaxy, whose center is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Gemini are opposing signs. The goat is Capricorn. Capricorn and Sagittarius are connecting signs. Look at all these patterns in these super ancient texts. Capricorn and Cancer are opposing signs. The dogs are both Canis Major, which is in Cancer, and Sirius, the dog star, which is also in Cancer. The fish is in Pisces. The grain is Virgo. Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. The snake is Serpens, which sits between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's part of Ophiuchus. The cup is Crater, which borders on Leo. So, Rich, what I basically did before I continue is I went to Ptolemy's list, because obviously people are going to say they didn't know these constellations back there. Well, we know 88 now, but in 150 AD, Ptolemy came out with a list, while the New Testament was still being written, of the 48 constellations they knew. So what I've simply done is I've went through them, the 48 constellations that they knew about at the time at 150 AD, and I just mapped them and connected them. So now, out of this tablet, right, the missing signs would be Aquarius, Taurus the bull, Libra the scales, and Scorpio the scorpion. But the other 8 signs are in this tablet. Now, Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the Netherworld. Remember, these are all Sumerian tablets we're going through right now. The boat is... Oh, hold on a minute. Sorry, here we go. The Gilgamesh and the Bowl of Heaven. Sorry about that. My king in the river, my lord, my wild bull. I wish to catch mountain sheep to fill the sheepfolds. Now, there are many repeating lines in these ancient Sumerian texts. I didn't include them all. Like if they mention the bull 12 times, I didn't mention the bull 12 times. If it mentions a sign once, I notate it, I show it, and then we move on from that sign. But these are completely loaded with all of these. Now, the river is Pisces, the bull is Taurus, and the sheep is Aries. This is a very small tablet with plenty of missing from it, but what we can see here is Pisces, Aries, and Taurus are 3 signs in a row. They're making patterns. What they're doing is they're mapping out the heavens while also telling you what to do in each sign. Enki's journey to Nibiru. Its eaves roar like a bull. Your lock has no rival. Your bolt is a fearsome lion. Your roof beams are the bull of heaven. Your vault is a bull raising its horns. Your door is a lion who seizes a man. Your staircase is a lion coming down on a man. Rising sea without a rival. Mighty awe-inspiring river which terrifies the land. A lion in the midst of the Abzu. The Suhu carp play among the honey herbs. Enki had oxen slaughtered and had sheep offered there lavishly. Enki reached for the beer, and he had emmer wheat beer pressed out. So the bull is Taurus, the bull of heaven. The lion is Leo. The man is Aquarius. Aquarius and Leo are opposing signs. The carp is Pisces, and the honey is the beehive cluster in Cancer. Aquarius and Pisces are connecting signs. The sheep is Aries. Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus are 4 signs in a row. The beer slash wheat beer is Virgo, the lady holding the wheat stalk. Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. Leo and Virgo are connecting signs. Cancer and Leo are connecting signs. Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are 3 signs in a row. Just by how they word things, you're seeing all these astrological patterns in the work. So Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, Pisces, Cancer, Aries, Virgo. The ship is Cancer to Scorpio. The ship is called Argo, and it's a constellation they knew from Ptolemy's list. It goes from Cancer to Scorpio. So the only 3 missing signs, because there's 9 signs in this one passage, is Gemini the twins, Sagittarius the horse, and Capricorn the goat. Now, Gemini and Sagittarius are opposing signs, and Capricorn and Sagittarius are connecting signs. So even in the signs that they left out, there are patterns to be found. In Nana's descent to the netherworld, she took the 7 divine powers. She had placed twin egg-shaped beads on her breast. After 3 days and 3 nights had passed, and the other the life-giving water. They will offer you a river full of water. They will offer you a field with its grain. They eat no sheep. The 7 of them poured the milk. They would not let the shepherd play the pipe. He turned his feet into snake's feet, in the beer house and the tavern. So the 7 divine powers are the 7 sisters, or the Pleiades. That's in Taurus. The twin is Gemini. Those are connecting signs. The life-giving water is Aquarius. The river full of water is Pisces. These are connecting signs. The field and the grain are Virgo. Pisces and Virgo are opposing signs. The fish is Pisces as well. The milk comes from the Milky Way galaxy, whose center is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Gemini are opposing signs. The shepherd is Aries. So far we have Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. 5 signs in a row. The snake is Ophiuchus, or serpent, which sits in sidereal astrology between Scorpio and Sagittarius. The beer house is Virgo. So there's 7 signs in this table, and 5 of them are in a row. This is not by accident. See, it would be one thing if I could just name things out, like the bull, the snake, and not make any patterns. But the fact that when they talk about this and the way they worded it, they're just lighting up the zodiac with all these patterns, connecting signs, opposing signs. It's unbelievable. Now, I just did 8 Sumerian tablets. So I'm continuing my work and going through all these ancient tablets. But 8 is enough for Sumerian. So I'm showing the pattern in Sumerian. Now, this is the Enuma Elish in Babylon. Then Tiamat enlisted a horned snake, a Mushusu dragon, a mad dog, and scorpion man, half fish, and half man, half bull. The horned snake is Ophiuchus. A dragon, Draco, the mad dog, is the dog star Sirius. The scorpion man is Scorpio and Aquarius mix. Scorpion man, scorpion and man, Scorpio, Aquarius. The half man, half fish is Aquarius, the man, and Pisces, the fish. They are connecting signs. And the half man, half bull is half Aquarius, the man, and half Taurus, the bull. The Code of Hammurabi, which incidentally, Rich, is where the Jews get all their punishments from. If your slave does this, you will pay 30 shekel. That all those punishments go back to the Code of Hammurabi. If a man has stolen ox or sheep or ass or pig or ship, whether from the temple or the palace, he shall pay 30-fold. The man sign is Aquarius. The ox is Taurus. The sheep is Aries. Aries and Taurus are connecting signs. The ass is a Celis Borealis or donkey, which is located in Cancer. And the pig is a constellation called Porcus. The ship is a constellation called Argo that goes from Cancer to Scorpio. So there are 7 signs total in this passage. Now let's go to the Egyptians, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. O mighty of knives, lady of the two lambs, the one who smashes the enemies of the weary-hearted one, the one who does what is wise, the one free of wrong. The name of its gatekeeper is Long-Horned Bull. What is to be said when arriving at the fifth portal? Words spoken by the Osiris Ani, the vindicated. O fiery one, mistress of heat, the joyful one, the one whom the entities of the bald-headed do not descend, the one who asks that something be given to her without the swift of glance entering into her. The name of its gatekeeper is one who spears the disaffected. The lady is Virgo, the woman. The long-horned bull is Taurus, the bull. Now, I never explained to you why the spear connects to Sagittarius, even though it's a bow and an arrow, but I'll explain it to you right now. Sagittarius in astrotheology is death, because the last day of Sagittarius is the day the sun dies. It's the first day of winter. So the death happens in Sagittarius, the horse. So there's 4 gospels in the Bible. Jesus dies in all 4. That's why you have 4 horsemen, or he dies in Sagittarius 4 times. The spear is very important. The 2 most important deaths in the Bible have to do with a spear. Jesus was hit in the side with the spear of destiny, and Cain and Abel, the first murder. While Cain hit him over the head with a rock, the name Cain in Hebrew translates to spear. So the spear is the instrument of death in the ancient times. Chapter for becoming Ta, eating bread, drinking beer, purifying the hinder parts, and being alive in Heliopolis. What will you live on, say the gods and spirits to me? I will live and have power through bread. Where will you eat it, say the gods and the spirits to me? I will have power and I will eat it under the branches of the tree of Hathor, my mistress, who have made offering of bread, beer, and corn in Heliopolis. Remember, bread, barley, and corn is all grainy things from Virgo, remember? In Heliopolis. Those who are in Heliopolis bow their heads to me, for I am their Lord, I am their bull. The bread, beer, corn is all Virgo when you harvest. The bull is Taurus. Heliopolis is the city of light in Egypt. It was called On, O-N, and it was where people went to get enlightened. Which is why to this day, when you go into a bedroom, Rich, and the lights are off, to get light, enlightenment, you have to turn the lights on. Everything is spiritual and deeply embedded, and people don't really seem to realize that. So let's go to the book of Enoch now. So now we're going to do the biblical Gnostic text. Remember, we're not really going to touch the Bible. We're just going to do the Gnostic text because we did the Bible previously. Chapter 8.2. This is why they don't want Enoch in the Bible, Rich. Semjaza taught enchantments. Armoros, the resolving of enchantments. Barachiel taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Sariel, the course of the moon. They're openly talking about it in the book of Enoch, and that's a no-no, because remember, astrology is evil, right? So, 51.4. And in those days, the mountains shall leap like rams. Well, the ram is Aries. And the hills shall also skip like lambs. Well, that's Aries. Satisfied with milk. The Milky Way galaxy, which is in Sagittarius. The Gospel of Q. Give us our daily bread today. Which of you would give your child a stone if they ask for bread? Or would you give them a snake if they ask for fish? The bread is Virgo. The snake is Ophiuchus, or Serpens, which is the snake in Ophiuchus. Remember, Ophiuchus in sidereal astrology is a man holding a basket, and you have the serpent. And the serpent is facing this way towards Sagittarius. The snake's head is facing the horse, which is why in the Bible they say the serpent will bite the heel of the horse and the rider will fall off. They're just explaining the heavens to you. Now, Pisces and Virgo are opposing signs. Everyone who divorces his wife and remarries is unfaithful to her. And whoever marries someone who's divorced is unfaithful too. Which of you, if you had 100 sheep and lost one of them, wouldn't leave the 99 in the hills and go after the one that got lost? So remember, divorce, marriage, court, law, that's all Libra, the scales. The sheep are Aries. Guess what? Those are opposing signs. The secret gospel of John. Sophia saw what her desire produced. It changed into the form of a dragon with a lion's head. Dragon is the sign of Draco. It goes from Aries to Sagittarius. The lion's head is Leo the lion. Well, part of Draco is Aquarius, and Aquarius and Leo are opposing signs, so they're diametrically opposed from each other in the heavens. So you're looking at one here, you look at the other one here. They make patterns. It teaches you the heavens. The Gospel of Thomas. Happy is the lion that a man will eat. The lion will become a man. Cursed is the man whom the lion eats, for that lion will become a man. They're talking about ingesting an animal and their components will become a part of you or a part of them. However, in astrology, the lion is the sign Leo. The sign of the man is Aquarius. Those are opposing signs. So all patterns, Rich, these are all patterns. Man is like a skilled angler who casts his net and draws it up full of fish. They're talking about the man, Aquarius, and the sign of the fish, Pisces. These are connecting signs. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Mary questioned her master. At the end of an eon will all matter be destroyed. Each zodiac sign is considered a house. So the house of Aquarius, the house of Pisces, each sign is also called an eon. The Gospel of Philip. When he came to his disciples in splendid glory on the Mount of Olives, he wasn't small. He became great and made his disciples great so they could see him in greatness. On that day, he said in gratitude, "You who have united perfect light with Holy Spirit, unite us with the angels as well. Don't scorn the Lamb. Without him, it's impossible to know the King. No one may visit the King without robes of light." Now remember, olives are Libra, right? That's when you squeeze them. And the Lamb is Aries. Again, opposing signs. The Good Samaritan gave wine and oil to the weak man. Well, wine, that's Libra. And the oil, that's also Libra. So this passage is just explaining Libra. That's why they connected them together, wine and oil. The Gospel of Judas. A nearby lake of still waters quenched our thirst. The place reminded us of David's famed shepherd psalm. Our souls were restored. The lake of still waters is Pisces the water. The shepherd is Aries. Again, connecting signs. The Book of Jubilees. So this is where I talk about the firmament, Rich, real quick. So let me explain it to you real quick. What am I on, 57? Okay, let me go back to this one right here. You see the dividing lines between the zodiac signs, Rich?
Yep, yes.
So those don't actually exist. Like when you're looking out in the sky, you don't see like a break between the signs. They don't exist. What they do, what those dividing lines are, is it's a separation. What it explains to you when you look at that is that the last 3 days of a sign and the first 3 days of the following sign, that 6-day period, is represented by this. They're called cusps. You can call them handover dates. They have many names. That is the firmament. The firmament is between them. The firmament is not a flat earth with a dome over it. That's not the firmament. Now, when I go back to this slide, it'll make sense. Hold on. 57. And on the second day, he created the firmament in the midst of the waters. And the waters were divided on that day. Half of them went above, and half of them went down below the firmament. Look at this picture that I took right here. Aquarius and Pisces, those are the two water signs. Remember, we were explaining this earlier. The firmament in the midst of the waters were divided. Half of them went above, Aquarius, and below, Pisces, the firmament. That's what the firmament is. The Gospel of Emmanuel, discovered by Billy Meyer. You brood of vipers, in 2 times 1,000 years, you and your descendants who carry on false teachings, out of your own pride, from motives of power and greed, shall be punished, and your lies destroyed. So it will be when the human race begins to comprehend and separate the wheat from the chaff. They always say that, the wheat from the chaff. The wheat is Virgo. That's when you separate the wheat from the chaff. This is astrotheology. The false teachings are the literal teachings they make, but Emmanuel's book predicts that in 2,000 years, the truth will come to light. That would be now. Because supposedly Billy Meyer found this in 63, I think. 1963. Well, I'll double check it, but he found it in 1963. 2,000 years prior, that's the time of Christ, supposedly, right? So they make these predictions and they're talking about things coming to light. Now, nevertheless, do not heed these false teachings, because millennia will pass before the people of these human races will be able to recognize the truth. Hence, following the fulfillment of your mission, centuries and 2 millennia will pass before the truth of your knowledge, brought among the people, will be recognized and disseminated by some humans. The earth can, here we go, Rich. The earth can nourish and support 500 million people of all the human races. But if the laws are not followed, in 2,000 years, 10 times 500 million people will exist, and the earth will not be able to support them anymore. Now, where have we heard the 500 million before?
Yeah,
This
Georgia
gospel was
Guidestones. Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, the gospel was discovered in 1963. The Guidestones were created. I'm sorry, the gospel was discovered in 1963. The Guidestones were 1980. From all my research, where they come up with that 500 million number, it goes back to this gospel. Since the human races will at the time comprise far more than 10 times 500 million people, great parts will be eradicated and killed. Now, what is 10 times 500 million by 1963? 5 billion, right? That was roughly the population at the time. Truly I say to you, from now on I will no longer drink of the fruit of the vineyard, nor eat of the bread, until I drink and eat again with you after my affliction. The grapes are Libra, the bread is Virgo. Those are connecting signs. Let's touch base on the Quran.
Can I just ask you, Mika, why do you think that they recently took down the Georgia Guidestones in terms of what you're saying there? What did that symbolize to you?
Well, to me, it all has to do with, I kind of tease it in a storybook fashion in my third book where we talk about the Guidestones. The name R.C. Christian on it, right? A lot of people tied to the Rosicrucians. But I don't think that's true. I think that was put in there to divert somebody. They called the 10 Satanic Commandments, right? I don't know. The thing is about Billy Meyer's tablet, the Gospel of Emmanuel, is there's a lot of people, because you know the history of Billy Meyer, right? With the UFOs and all that stuff.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that don't believe he's real, or that don't believe that what he found is real, because supposedly he was with a friend in Israel and he found this in a hole, supposedly, or he like dug, or he knew where it was and he dug for it and it was like right there. Whether it's real or not is irrelevant, because it has information that's pertinent to us right now. And I've traced back the 500 million to that. So I'm not really sure why they did that. I'm just finding the patterns in the work to show that
Yep.
even though the Gospel of Emmanuel says a lot of things that have come true, whether it's real or not is irrelevant, because they're still encoded the same way. This seems to be how every ancient holy text has been encoded, and I'm going to show you in the Quran too. And then I'm going to explain what it all means. Those who do not know say, why has not the Lord turned the word to us? And why will he not show us a sign from heaven? Similar words were spoken by those who came before them, their hearts alike. We interpret the signs. For those who are committed to their faith with all their soul. And how beautiful all people see the love of earthly passions. Here are women and sons. There are mountains of silver and gold, and marked horses, and herds of cattle, and a plowed field. Women are Virgo, the sign of the woman. The sons are the boys in Gemini. Horses are Sagittarius, and cattle is Taurus. A plowed field is Taurus as well. Taurus and Gemini are connecting signs. Gemini and Sagittarius are opposing signs. Verily, in the creation of earth and sky, and in the change of night to day, here are the hidden signs for those who have intelligence. They're openly explaining it to you, and people just don't get it. And among them, there are those who only pretendingly listen to you. We put a cover on their hearts so that they would not understand it, and we covered their ears with deafness. And even if they see all the signs, they will not believe them. Once you understand astrotheology, the Quran falls apart. Or not really falls apart, but opens up. He is the one who brings down water to you from the sky. And with it we give plants of all kind to grow. And with it we grow shoots of cereals. From them we grew grains. Sitting in an ear of a dents, side by side, from the date palm, its ovaries, bunches of fruits hanging low, gardens of vines, olives, pomegranates, which, in many ways, are so similar yet so different from each other. When fruits appear on them, rejoice in how they are poured and ripen. Truly, in this are hidden signs for those who believe in God. Well, what are those signs, Rich? Well, the grains are planted in Taurus. We went over that. Then April showers bring May flowers. That's still in Taurus. Water from the sky. The grains grow. You reap in Virgo. Gardens of vines and olives. Grapes and olives are pressed in Libra. These are the hidden signs that you need to know, and they're openly talking about it. Remember, this is the Quran, by the way. Okay? And whoever wants to own a beautiful garden of date palms and vines, which is washed by abundant streams, where for his pleasure all kinds of fruit, while old age befalls him, and the children are weak, so that a fiery whirlwind fall on the garden and swallows it all to ashes. So the Lord explains his signs to you so that you can understand. The vines are vineyards in Libra. The streams are the streams in the water signs of Pisces and Aquarius. God explains these 12 signs to you so you can understand, so you can break this down, so you can appreciate creation and everything. Now let's do the Book of Mormon real quick. Nevertheless, I went forth as I came near unto the house of Laban. I beheld a man, and he had fallen to the earth before me, for he was drunken with wine. Yea, and I also thought that they could not keep the commandments of the Lord according to the law of Moses, save they should have the law. So what are the two things they talked about in this passage? The law and the wine. Well, they both happen to be Libra. And after the house of Israel should be scattered, they should be gathered together again, or in fine, after the Gentiles have received the fullness of the gospel, the natural branches of the olive tree, or the remnants of the house of Israel, should be grafted in or come to the knowledge of the true Messiah, their Lord and their Redeemer. Therefore remember, O man, for all thy doings thou shalt be brought into judgment. Now, what are the things they brought up here too? The olives and the judgment. Again, that's Libra. It's amazing how everything connects properly when you understand the true Farmer's Almanac nature of this. And my father said he should baptize in Bethabara, beyond Jordan. And he also said he should baptize with water, even that he should baptize the Messiah with water. And after he had baptized the Messiah with water, he should behold and bear record that he had baptized the Lamb of God, who should take away the sins of the world. Well, the baptism is literally Aquarius. This tapestry doesn't really show it really well, but Aquarius, the man holding the water pitcher, pouring it out, that's how you baptize someone. Baptism is literally just retelling the story of Aquarius. And the Lamb of God is Aries. And I looked and beheld the Lamb of God, that he was taken by the people. Yet the Son of the everlasting God was judged of the world, and I saw and bear record. The Lamb of God is Aries. The Son of God, or the Son of Man, is Aquarius. Judging takes place in Libra. Libra and Aries are opposing signs. So, yeah, the rest is just self-promotional stuff, but basically, Rich, in an hour, I just took you through our entire history and how they're all encoded the exact same way. Now, you watched me do the Bible with you, I think, a year and a half, two ago. I would be more than willing to give it a fresh look and do it again with you. But I just wanted to show you that none of these books are original. This proves that the Bible is not original. This proves the Bible is not original. And when you look at how the Quran is encoded and how they're all encoded the same way, doesn't it just become absolutely ridiculous that people are taking these stories literally?
It really, really does, yeah. And then even to that extent that even if they don't understand this, I think it's ridiculous anyway. But are we talking about here then? I mean, we can go for another 25 minutes. Because I want to get your kind of take as you on this information. Are we looking at a survival guide? Is that what it is?
It is in turn, and again, this is not all it is. This just happens to be the oldest science encoded in all these books.
Okay.
Um, this is a farmer's almanac. It is the knowledge of staying alive. When I went through the zodiac with you 2,000 years ago, before the internet, when you just had land and animals, you had to look at the sky and know it was happening. We have weathermen that do this now, right? Oh, it's going to snow in England. Oh, it's going to rain. Oh, there's riots going on here. You didn't know any of that. You didn't have any kind of stuff like that. You had to know the heavens, and they knew the heavens. And that quote that I gave you at the beginning, Rich, from John Dominic Crossan, it's not that these ancients told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically. It's that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. And the war machine and everything that's going on, the war in Israel, the wars between the Jews and the Muslims, the Christians that don't like the Jews, even though they came from the Jews, and then all this stuff, with this understanding of the ancient truths, can destroy the Abrahamics if this all comes out. And that is my purpose. That is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach people the ancient ways, to go back to the old ways of how things used to be done. And through this, you see God. I mean, Rich, this does not take away from God. Think about this. The sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, and the zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar. And these ancient holy texts were our ways of understanding. And I know this is a connecting sign and this does this. It helps you understand the heavens perfectly.
And these three Abrahamic religions, I've said in the past, have been orchestrated or taken that information and put it in a way that all three have been triangulated against each other. Do you think that there are people that understand this at some level and they perfectly understand exactly what they're doing?
All the way at the top, I mean, like the ones all the way at the top, like maybe like the Orsini's and the 13 bloodlines. People know this. I can't be the only one. I'm just a dude from New York that figured this out. I can't be the only one, Rich. Um, this is, it's an anthropomorphization, or that's what Jesus basically is. An anthropomorphized. They've always been solar deities. Jesus, however, was anthropomorphized as a human, and people are believing that literally instead of looking at these ancient wonders. The cipher that I've given you can break down any ancient holy text, anyone that's revered. Now, I've only been doing the Western text right now. I haven't done the Eastern yet, but I'm sticking with the Western because that's what basically rules the world. But you wonder why astrology is so banned in Catholicism and the Quran. But you can't deny what I found.
Mm. Absolutely not. So why do you think these guys are playing out these things in a literal? Is it just greed and money, or do you think they actually believe that they're trying to re-engineer this new world order in terms of basically, as you see as the Great Reset, they're spinning the astrological wheel round the other way and resetting God, which would be the middle, the sun. Do you think that they think that you utilizing these truths can create the world in their own image and kind
Well,
of
what's more
figurate it?
realistic, Rich? What do you personally think is more realistic? Is it more realistic that all these holy books prophecy is being played out, or that they're encoded books? People know this, and because the book is already out there, they can tailor world events to look like
Yeah.
prophecy. That's what we're seeing with the red heifers. That's what we're seeing with the Al Aqsa Mosque, where they're trying to build the third temple. We're seeing all this play out right now, and it will all play out unless we get this kind of stuff out there to expose it.
I absolutely agree with you that it's not a prophecy, it's a plan and an agenda. My kind of question is, do these people at the very top, the Orsini's and that, believe that they, by weaponizing the what you've pointed out, the nature of reality in sense,
Well,
or the coding reality, whether they can change it? Do you think they actually believe it, or they're just using it to control people?
they're using it to control people. These are basically what they're doing is they're weaponizing ignorance. Is what they're doing, Rich. They're weaponizing ignorance, and I mean, think about the amount of people that fear these holy texts that just sit there and they're like, I need to pray right, I need to do right, I need to. They don't know what they're reading. They have no clue. They can't even be. We're not. And the dumbing down with the Rockefeller education system, people don't even know how to think anymore. Everybody just falls in line, you know. And all these denominations fight with each other. They like the infighting because it keeps the focus off away from the truth.
And it's fascinating to see that. I wonder. It's not fascinating to see that. It's fascinating to see what you've actually pulled apart here. It makes total obvious sense, although it's obvious to understand. It makes a sense on a level where you don't logically need to understand it so much that it just rings true. Do you think these people have a god at the top, the Orsini's, these black nobility families, that they think that they're worshipping, or do you think that they've convinced themselves of that? It's just interesting thought, a thought analysis.
I mean, look at what's happening in the music industry. Everything, like when a record comes out, they put a spell on it, right?
Hmm.
They get the record execs to come around, they put a spell on it. They're all working with dark magic, and at the top level, they're still working with dark magic, and they're trying to appease these people. Remember this, Rich: Yahweh, the Jewish God, the Christian God, was a Phoenician Canaanite deity.
Yep.
You know who else was a Phoenician Canaanite deity? Moloch and Baal. The
Hmm.
Jews are henotheistic. They're not monotheistic. Henotheism means they took one God out of many and decided to worship him. And they tell you in the Bible all this kind of stuff, like Yahweh required Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and then stopped it at the end. And he goes, "All right, you don't have to sacrifice people, but you need to sacrifice animals to me." So they start sacrificing the lambs, the rams, and the goats. Well, hello, the goat is Capricorn, the ram is Aries, and the bulls are Taurus. They're openly talking to you about it. You're sacrificing these, and in the Bible it says the smoke from the burning, screaming flesh would rise to the ceiling, and the Lord would smell it, and he was pleased. Like, this is some sick shit that's in there, to be honest with you. And people are just terrified to go to hell, so they don't question it.
It's
It's a fear-based system that keeps you in your lower vibrational frequency.
It's utterly insane that people do take this literally, even if, again, as I said earlier, they don't understand this. With the transhumanist agenda, you mentioned something before about this, like they were trying to, because this is the age of man that we're supposed, Aquarius, we're coming into it. It's almost like they're trying to change that, what that means. Do you see that
Well,
yourself?
think about this. Think about this. Why are they trying to merge consciousness with AI? Why are they trying to put your thoughts and your personality and your soul into that? You know why? Because when you die, they can't tax you anymore. But if you're in a steel body that could just be oiled every once in a while and doesn't degrade like human flesh, then they can keep you in the system forever.
It's insane, isn't it? And I've got some of these people, like the Jewish faith, don't want to die, so they want to be transhumanism. I mean, not all those in the Jewish faith, the messianic mystic, but they want to be forever immortal. And we know the Hollywood connections to that. But then you have the Gnostics, who want to get out of this place and don't want to be in here. And it's just so strange to see how they've kind of basically triangulated these three Abrahamic religions to fight amongst each other from the same text. It's absurd.
It's from the same text. Remember, the Jews wrote the Old Testament and said that I was raised Jewish. And believe me, I had to break from all that, and it's hard. It's really hard because your whole support system, your family, your friends, or whatever, they
Mm.
put you in a situation where you're all the same. The Jews wrote the Old Testament and said they were the chosen ones. The Jews wrote the New Testament in Greek and made a Jewish Messiah to fulfill Jewish prophecy. And as far as Islam, the Muslim and the Jewish religion goes back to this story. This is where their conflict begins. It's in the Bible. There's a story about Abraham and Sarah and their children, right? Sarah was barren. She couldn't have children. So God told Abraham to sleep with his housekeeper, right? They had Ishmael. That's the father of Islam. Whereas Sarah eventually became pregnant and they had Isaac. Now, when you're talking about going to the sacrifice of Isaac, the Jews believe it was Isaac, but the Muslims believe it was Ishmael. And that is the beginning of their issues. That needs to be addressed. That is the beginning of their issues. And it's absolutely insane that this is playing out. Like, we live in a absolutely insane world.
We absolutely do. We really, really do. And I know it's just not funny because but it is absurdly funny, and
It is.
it's a clown house. And
It's almost like a Monty Python skit if you think about it.
yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And people, that's why that resonates, is because we all know, I think, at deep at our level, until we're taught otherwise. You said something really interesting there. I've never heard anyone say that. I was raised Jewish. Now, that would imply that I mean, I know that Jewish is a faith. It's not a DNA, it's not a race of being,
Right.
it's a faith. Where has this mixture come in? Jewish is clearly you wouldn't say I'm Christian race. You wouldn't say I'm the Muslim or is Islamic race. So
Mhm.
where does that come from? That to me it seems totally absurd. It's a faith. It's
Well, it's
clearly a
also
faith.
weird too because the word, if I call you a Christian or a Muslim, you'll be like, okay. But you call somebody a Jew, that's also a slur.
Hmm.
It's funny how everything was set up. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it's the I don't know how to put this without trampling over people, but um, I think the Jewish community relies heavily, like the woke community does, on levels of being messed with, or how am I trying to word this? Um, like the hatred towards them. How about perpetual victim? Let's use that.
Hmm.
I think that the Jewish religion nowadays, with things like the ADL and everything, is a perpetual victim mentality. And I don't have patience for it with the woke, and I don't have patience for it with that either.
Yeah, it makes
My
sense.
dad once told me one time, he said, every Jewish holiday is they tried to kill us, they failed, let's eat.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it
how
makes
it was
sense.
broken down.
It's the underdog principle. It's the always fighting, and I'm the righteous, for a righteous Rocky survivor kind of. We all have that because life is hard, and they've kind of tapped into that. But even
Mhm.
when it's obviously not that way in the world that we see right now, they still play that part of it, and that's been weaponized. Mostly, most people won't understand that.
Mhm.
But then I still can't get round why people don't understand Judaism as a faith and not a race. It blows my mind. It really, really does. Your work is absolutely fantastic, and I could pick your brain all day about this stuff. Where do you see this Trump stuff coming in? Because it's the whole messianic stuff that worries me. You can see me posting about it every day because whether he believes it or not,
I think they're rushing prophecy because people are starting to wake up in
yes,
droves.
I agree. Yeah.
That's what I think is happening. I think they're rushing it. Um, Now, I don't think Trump understands the Jewish geopolitics to that level. To me, he has a Jewish son-in-law and Jewish grandkids,
Mm.
and I think he's like a person. First of all, he doesn't understand astrotheology. Let's just get that right there. He doesn't get any of this stuff. Um, I don't think he is he is certainly not an evangelical Christian. That I mean, whenever time I see everybody praying around him, I want to vomit. Like it's just
Yeah.
I think they're rushing it a little bit. And I think if you go against Israel, um, you're going to have problems. So I think they're rushing it. They want to put the third temple. They have the red heifers that they imported from Texas. What was it, like 5 or 7 of them? They're rushing this. Um, these are spells that they're doing. That's what they're doing. These are spells, and they don't understand the intention behind them. If you have to take a life to create something, then it can't be good.
Mm.
Okay, so slitting, like in the Jewish religion, for example, they talk about killing animals, right, and sacrificing them, and it's got to be, is it halacha? I can't remember the word for it, but basically, if the knife you're using has a nick on it, and you cut an animal's throat and it doesn't die right away, you can't do anything with that animal. The animal can't have pain, and that's how they convince themselves that killing this stuff is worth it. It's insane. It's insane. They're all insane. And they've gone so far away from the beautiful esoteric gnosis that our heavens patterns and everything are in our holy texts, that they're not meant to be taken literally. And you know what they do, Rich? They're weaponizing the fear of death. And it works because most people, once you exist and you're self aware, you don't want to not exist anymore. Most people. I mean, there are people that take their lives, but I'm not talking about them. Those people just don't want to feel pain anymore, mentally or physically, whatever. Um, they're weaponizing people's fear of death from the beginning of time. That's what they're doing. When you know that God is real and you are eternal, their propaganda doesn't work anymore. And then they get mad. They get real mad.
You came up with something, and I will let you go in a minute, but I just got to ask you this question. I've been watching your videos the last few days, so obviously did the research. And you said about the DMT being released into the body at the moment of death, and there was another moment that it happens, and I can't remember what that was. But it's the kind of seeing your loved ones and seeing this kind of, it's the rush of it into the body. It just literally like a flood.
Mhm.
If that's not, and you said it's not real, it's illusionary, what do you think is real? What do you believe?
These are Jungian archetypes, the hero, the trickster, or family members. These are they might not necessarily be Jungian, but these are archetypes of figures. Why does everybody see Jesus?
Mm.
If Jesus is the son and he wasn't real, why does everybody see the stereotypical Jesus? Is because when your body is transitioning to the next phase, seeing this makes it easier for you to do that because it is a transitionary period. There are people that hold on way longer than they should, like Jimmy Carter. He's an example of somebody that's holding on way longer than they should. But then when you let go and you see that, the other thing too is that at the end of your life, when you see the tunnel, the white tunnel, and you see all your family members, maybe your pets or whatever in there, that's a reincarnation trap. That's how we keep repopulating. That's how it works. What you need to do when you see that tunnel, and this has been explained many, many, many times, what you do is you turn around and face the void, face the universe, and ask God and Spirit to send your soul back to where it belongs, and you will not come back to Earth.
Yeah, David
Now,
talks about that in The Trap, yeah.
if people knew that and understood this, then they wouldn't fall for dogma.
And what you mentioned there about Jimmy Carter hanging on to too long and being between lives, you just basically explained what you explained with the was it the firm, what's it called? The thing that goes over the top. What's
The
it called?
firmament.
A firmament. It's the 6 days, it's towards the end of your life and the end bit. And that bit in the middle where they give you some comfort is that crossover, like you do when you edit and you cross fade two things into one. It's that comfort in the middle there of two things blending so that it's not a shock. That
Well,
be
we're talking about Sumerians too, right? You know Nibiru, right? The planet
hmm
Nibiru. Nibiru is not a planet. In Sumerian language, Nibiru means to cross over. It's the
Right.
next plane of existence. It's not actually a planet that's going to come and do this.
So is that what they call it, Planet X? Do they call it Planet X? Am I right?
Planet X. They used to call it Planet X, yeah,
So
but
that
it's
would be
it's.
the crossing over the two levels over the top of each other. And obviously that's
I
the
think that's why I think that's why Twitter became X. I think
yeah.
it's related to that. To be honest with you, when you realize that everything is spiritual, whether it's good spiritual or bad spiritual, and it's being used against you, what we have to do is not murder these people. I don't want to rip a Rockefeller's head off. You expose them.
Hmm.
That's what we have to do. We need to expose everything.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing with your incredible work. Where can people find your work? I'm going to get you back on in the next few weeks so we can redo the Bible stuff because it's been, as you say, a year and a half, way too long, and I apologize for that. Where can people find your stuff?
So my website is debunkmywork.com.
It's a great title.
And
Great name.
yeah, debunkmywork.com. Now on my website, I have my YouTube channel. I have all my social medias. I have a Rumble. I have a backup Rumble in case YouTube just knocks me off, which they haven't done yet. I have my book series, which dives deeper into the astrotheology and into the hidden. It's info. The information in my book series. If I tried to talk about it on YouTube, I would get banned.
Right.
So my book series is called Into the Rabbit Hole. That's on my webpage, debunkmywork.com. I have like a hoodie, a t-shirt, and a hat. I don't. I'm not like. I'm not out there making like pens, coffee mugs, flavored condoms. I'm not doing any of that kind of crap, Rich. You know. But I just got basic stuff. But I also have all my astrotheology videos. Remember, what we just did was one example from each book, or maybe a couple examples from each book. I have the entire texts broken down in these videos on my website, my books. There's a way to email me at the bottom of it. And yeah, I want to get this stuff out, man, because I think this is the way to peace, personally, is exposure. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I found.
Yep, I completely agree. And what you said earlier, the weaponization of the fear of death of the unknown is exactly what's behind all of this. And if that could be appeased, we would solve a lot of problems here. And you did a fantastic video on your. Go over to Mika's YouTube as well. I watched a fantastic video on the Queen of all people this morning in the Ninth Circle. I mean, his information isn't just this; it's incredible across the board, and I'd say that wholeheartedly. So do go across and look at the website and all the videos there, and support Mika's work because he's one of the guys that knows far more than most out there, but doesn't get the praise or what would I say, the platform that he deserves. And I hopefully
Right.
one is able to help you.
I'm not like Russell branding it.
No, no, none of us are, but you are very, very, very clued up in all this stuff. So thank you for your time, and I'll get you back on in the next few weeks, and we'll
We'll
do
be in
more of
touch.
this.
We'll be in touch. Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care.
So, guys, remember to do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and we'll see you in a week's time here on Ickonic.com. Take care.